All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We want to thank you to the input hearing for Kings County and this region, which we want to thank the College of Sequoias for hosting us here. I'm not familiar with this campus, but I actually went to COS in Visalia at one time. So that was, I feel really good about that because that kind of started my educational career. And so I'm grateful to COS. We also want to acknowledge and thank Kings County for inviting us to this venue, also in this area. So Supervisor Richard Valle would like to say a few words. Mr. Valle.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. It's our pleasure, my pleasure, on behalf of Kings County to welcome you and your board members here to Kings County. Thank you for taking the time to come here and listen to the folks who live here and raise families here. Thank you for your commitment to public service. I know a lot of you are missing family time or missing ball games with your kids and things at school, so I get that. And again, thank you for the commitment. The 30th Assembly District members, I think, as you continue with your studies, this is one of the few competitive assembly districts in the state of California. You can win here as a Republican, you can win here as a Democrat. The seat has gone back and forth, and by it being a competitive seat, it's a win-win for the people who live here. You get elected to the assembly here in the 30th district, you have to work hard those 2 years to keep the seat. That means you're in the district, you're here at events. Prior to getting elected myself, I spent 6 years as a district staffer here in Hanford for Assembly Member Nicole Parra. So I'm very familiar with the 30th districts and the 4 counties that are under the umbrella. It is big, it is large, but I think you could look at it and see it as a model when it comes to fairness. And it'd be great to see that kind of competition up and down the state, because it will, again, be a win-win for the entire state of California, the folks who live here. Again, thank you for being here in Kings County and for listening to us here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Valle. And thank you for your service as an elected official. Thank you very much. We would like to introduce ourselves, and I'm going to start over on the right-hand side. Commissioner, just mention your name and perhaps what area you hail from.
My name is Maria Blanco, and I'm from the city and county of Los Angeles. And I'm very, very glad so many people showed up tonight. It's very exciting.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Dye, and I'm from the city and county of San Francisco. And looking forward to hearing all of the public testimony today.
And I'm Gil On Time from San Diego County, and I'm very pleased to be here to receive your input. Thank you.
I'm Jody Filkins Weber. I live in a town called Norco, which is in Riverside County. And I am also pleased to be here, and I'm pleased for the turnout as well, and I look forward to hearing from you this evening.
I'm Stan Forbes. I'm a farmer from Yolo County.
My name is Vince Baraba. I am from Santa Cruz County, the village of Capitola. And at one time in my career, I was the director of the Census Bureau, so I think I counted every one of you. And now we'll use that information.
I'm Connie Galambos-Malloy. I'm from Oakland, California. I am an urban planner specializing in environmental issues, housing, and transportation. I am also the mother of young children. The 18-month-old is here nearby as we speak and kind of enjoying this chance to get to know the state of California better. I've had dear friends from Visalia and Exeter, and so I've spent a lot of time in the area, so it's nice to be here now in another capacity.
My name is Jean Raya. I'm an insurance broker. I come from the city of San Gabriel, which is about 10 miles east of downtown Los Angeles, and I'm married to a Visalian who is a COS alum.
Hi, I'm Michelle DiGiulio, and I'm in Stockton, California right now. And previously, in my other life, I was a regional planner for the Great Valley Center, so works a lot in the San Joaquin Valley and being the northern part of county with being in San Joaquin County. Right now, I am busy with 4 small kids, ages 2, 4, 6, and 8, so I've got my hands full at home. So I decided to take this on instead.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Yao. I'm from a small town 30 miles east of Los Angeles called Claremont. I'm a retired aerospace engineer, and I'm very happy to be with you tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Parvenu. I currently reside in Culver City. I work with the City of L.A. as a city planner, zoning analyst. I have an interest in geography. It's my major. And I've traveled through Kings County on numerous occasions, down to 5 and the 99, but I haven't had an opportunity to actually come to Hanford. So this is a great opportunity to be here to meet you all.
Yes, and my name is Gabino Aguirre. Presently, I'm chair of the commission. We have a rotating chair format, so I will be falling from grace after tomorrow. And this gentleman to my right is going to take the flag, and as we move on to the L.A. area the week after next. So we have, of course, you see all of the commission except one. As a commission, we made a commitment to come to California and to listen to you personally, give your testimony, because it's not only important that we accept your testimony and listen to it, but the way the communication goes, we should be feeling it as well. Okay, I live in Santa Paula, California. Formerly lived in Visalia, in Tulare, in Sanger, in Fresno, in Exeter, in Farmersville, and a little bit of Delano also. So I know this area, quite well, but it's changed a lot, and that's why we're here. It's changed in the last decade, and the maps that were drawn 10 years ago, of course, we need to revisit now that the new census information is out. So we're here. With us here as a commission, we have our staff. Our executive director is Daniel Claypool. And then we have Lon Leach, who is also part of our staff, and Janice Sargis over here on the right. Also traveling with us is Q2 Data, who are our line drawer consultants. Over here to our left, Karen and her staff. The work that we do is to come and take testimony. Your testimony is being captured, being live streamed right now on the internet throughout Kings County, California, the nation, and actually the world. Anybody can tap in. So this testimony, that's a wake up. This testimony is actually very important, and it becomes part of the record. And after we do this first round of input sessions, we will be meeting with our consultants, and actually, given the input that we're receiving from the 9 regions of California, then we will develop a set of maps, draft maps, and we will direct them as far as where we feel, based on testimony, that the line should go. So this is, we have a guidebook that you should have picked up in the back. The guidebook kind of provides all of the information that you would need to inform yourselves about the process, and also if actually you could have a group of individuals that might be interested, if not here, in the next round of input hearings, because we're going to be coming back to this region, as we will be to all regions in California, and share the information with them. Perhaps they can present the next time. So there is a nonpartisan requirement to Proposition 11, which formed this commission, and that means that that we cannot consider and take testimony from any candidates or potential or candidates or actual office holders as it relates to drawing districts that would favor them or their party. So this is, so in essence then, we are the citizens that you elected to represent you, so through the selection process. So we want to thank you for that. The procedures for the hearing, I mean, we could just move on to the input, taking input, but actually we want to organize ourselves so we can make maximum use of the time. So the hearing procedures very quickly kind of run like this.
So you stop for a minute so we can connect to the mic.
Yeah, okay. Testing?
We're waking up the rest of the world.
I would also, I want to offer our greetings to Angelo Ancheta, who is the 14th commissioner who was unable to be here, but he's watching the live stream and participating in that way. And Michael Ward as well. So we have, I've been asked to, by Mr. Commissioner Parvenu to, if he wants to make a couple of quick comments.
Yes, just two. Thank you, Commissioner Aguirre. Just two quick announcements. I'd like to announce that we do have a Fresno Redistricting Assistance Center, and that's located just north of here. And I want to thank the redistricting group at Berkeley Law and the Irvine Foundation for making that possible. This is for the benefit of those in the region who may be viewing this via web, and you may know about this already. It's a very useful facility. It's located at 2420 Mariposa Street in downtown Fresno. Also, I'd like to announce briefly that just today a new website was launched by redrawca.org. That was launched by the Advancement Project and also by Healthy Cities. It's an excellent website. It's highly interactive. It's educational. They move from their program and developing phase to their community outreach phase. It's interactive, as I said. You can submit your own individualized maps as well as group maps. So I highly encourage everyone to please visit that site, those sites, and of course our site, We Draw the Lines. It's REDRAW, DRAWCA.org. And we encourage you to pass the word. Yes. The first was the Fresno Redistricting Assistance Center, located at the Fresno Central Library at 2420 Mariposa Street.
This is,
I think that's an incorrect address. I believe it's 1730.
Okay, well, I have an outdated PDF here. Okay, thanks for the correction.
Karen, did you want to address?
Yes, I think there's just confusion because we held a redistricting workshop at that site that you've just mentioned. The Fresno Redistricting Assistance site is located at 1713 Tulare Street, Suite 130 in Fresno.
Thank you for the correction, Karen.
All right. Thank you very much.
And this is, you have this in your handout, by the way. There's a listing of all of the redistricting assistance sites.
The information that was just mentioned is part of your guide.
Page 10.
All right, so here's the game plan for tonight. First of all, anybody who's interested in speaking should have picked up a number in the back. So just quickly for us to judge how many speakers there are, could you please raise your hands to see how many are speaking? So, okay. So we would like to, there's about 20 of you that I can see. So I think we could allow 5-minute presentations, if at all possible. If you could narrow it down a little bit. But I will tell you that as we arrive at that number, Janice is going to signal to you that there's 1 minute left. And then as soon as that minute is gone, if you continue to speak, I'm going to allow you to kind of finish that sentence, but I don't mean to be rude, but in the interest of time and fairness to everybody, then we want to hold to that number. So if you have materials to submit to the commission formally, or if you have handouts for the commission, then you can hand those to Janice, and she will either collect them or turn them over to us. You can also submit input through the mail. It's part of your guide. Fax it, or you can email it in to votersfirstact.crc.ca.gov. Then, as I mentioned, these proceedings are being live cast. The question has come up of, what is the criteria that you use in drawing these so-called political districts? We are concerned with 4 types of districts. Congressional districts, there's 53. Assembly districts, there are 80 of those in California. Senate districts, there's 40 of those, and then the 4 Board of Equalization districts. So the first criteria in drawing districts is to equalize the number of residents based on the 2010 census so that there's equal population all the way across. So in terms of congressional districts, the population, the number of individuals per congressional district that we will have to draw is, the total number is 702,905 individuals. We are allowed a deviation of 1 person from district to district on that. So for assembly districts, it's 465,674 individuals. For Senate districts, generally it's twice that, 931,349. And for the Board of Equalization districts, 9,313,489 individuals. For the state offices, the Assembly, the Senate, and the Board of Equalization, there's a deviation allowance of 5%. So we have our mapper, our consultant, that as you present your testimony, if you're talking about a particular area, as you can see, there's a projection right behind me, and our mapper is going to try to direct your attention and our attention at exactly what area you're talking about. So if you're talking about Lemoore, then she's going to bring it up and she'll kind of point that out just so that we know what we're talking about. We certainly welcome socioeconomic information from your particular community of interest, but because we will be in the business of directing our line drawer to draw maps, we certainly would want you to delineate what the borders, what the streets, what markers would surround and encompass the particular area that you're talking about. So if you're talking about southeast Hanford, then what are the borders of that area that you're talking about? So if you're talking about a particular neighborhood, give us the name of that neighborhood, location, boundary, street name, something to help us indicate what that is. So are there any questions? Yes, sir.
You said a deviation of 1 person. 1 person or 1%?
We have a tough job. And so, as I mentioned, the criteria it follows this order. We must first equalize the population with those deviations as mentioned. The second criteria is compliance with the Voters' Rights Act. The third criteria is contiguity. That means connection of all points within the district. Compactness, not long, elongated districts, but as much as possible, as compact as possible. The fifth is to consider nesting. Nesting means putting 2 assembly districts within 1 Senate district, nesting them within 1 Senate district. And in terms of the Board of Equalization, nesting 10 of those Senate districts within each district to the maximum extent possible. We are required to respect jurisdictions, counties, and cities, and not to split them up. We are, as much to the maximum extent possible, we are required to consider communities of interest, neighborhoods, And so that's just the background on the criteria. So as you talk about, just one last comment about numbers. As you tell us, as has happened at other hearings, that we want our county to be kept whole, and we want you to make that an assembly district, okay? That's what we've heard in other areas. If there's, in that county, if there's 467,674 individuals, the numbers will work. But if there's 35,000 individuals in that county, it's not going to happen, you see? So anyway, as you get close to the dense urban centers, then you're going to see a number of assembly districts, senate districts, et cetera. As you go out into the more sparsely populated areas, then, of course, the districts, senate districts, assembly districts, congressional districts get to be very large. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the communities of interest and neighborhoods.
Yes.
What are the differences between those?
A neighborhood generally, I think, refers to a particular area within a town or a city that is characterized by certain common characteristics that you might have. An ethnic community, an ethnic body would be one, a particular section of a particular town, kind of like that. Communities of interest could be that also, but it could refer more to the farming, the farming interest. It could refer more to other types of industries like the oil industry, agriculture, non-agriculture. It could refer to the communities in the mountain areas that certainly have their own particular, set of interest. It could refer, as has been brought up, as a particular watershed. There's an interest in maintaining, protecting a particular watershed. So that's kind of the general definition of that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments from commissioners to further clarify what we're trying to do here tonight? Okay. All right. So that particular question was about communities of interest. So if you ask a question, just because of the makeup of the setup, you're kind of directing this way. So if you ask a question kind of looking this way, the folks in the back might not be able to hear you. So I will try to repeat that question. Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned here that complying with the Federal Voting Rights Act is to ensure that minority voters have equal opportunities to elect candidates of their choice. Could you explain that to me?
Could we have somebody who is more, maybe Maria, who has worked with the Voting Rights Act, could explain that much better than I?
Sure. Is this on? Yeah. So, repeat the question.
Yes.
The question was that our second criteria in order of importance after redistributing population is compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And the question is, what does that mean to be in compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which requires us to create majority-minority districts whenever possible? So that's the question. What is a majority? Well, I guess the question is two-part. What is a majority-minority district, and what does the Federal Voting Rights Act require? The Federal Voting Rights Act, since 1964, has required that when it's because of historical trends where for many years and still in many parts of the country, people will vote along racial lines. Some people will never vote for one race, and other people won't vote for the other race. It's what's called racially polarized voting, which is still pretty pervasive in this country. Because of that knowledge, the Federal Voting Rights Act, in order to ensure that minorities have a voice and their vote is not diluted, is the technical explanation, we are mandated to try and find areas that they still have to be cohesive and compact, where a minority population is over 50% citizen voting age. And if there is a compact area that is like that, the mandate is to try and keep them together to have an over 50% minority district so that they will have a chance to elect a representative, because if they're in another district, their vote tends to get diluted because people might not vote for minority candidates. So we have to look at that in all the maps that we draw to make sure we're not diluting votes when we're drawing the maps. I know that's a little bit technical, but that's basically...
Yeah, I heard an additional question, which was, so what is a minority?
I didn't catch that part of the question. It's whatever is in the census tract as non-white and Hispanic of whatever race. Right. That's right. And the Supreme Court deals with that in its decisions, that sometimes the minority is white.
All right. Okay. Seeing no other questions, we will take individual number one. Thank you. It would be good if as you see the individual kind of moving toward the end of his quote unquote 5 minutes.
Okay.
Then number two could. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So you could queue up to the batter's box right there. Thank you. Oh yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Earl Mann, and I'm not from Kings County. I'm from neighboring Tulare County, and I would like to address the commission concerning the 34th Assembly District, which is represented by Assemblywoman Connie Conway. Anyone running for this district should be required to have a pilot's license because of the extent of the district. It takes in Visalia, goes north approximately to Fresno, east to the Sierra Nevadas, up the Nevada range to about Santa Fe, equivalent to that parallel or longitude, then goes east to the California border. And from the California border, it continues down to even into the Arizona border, which is in Arizona at Lake Havasu. At that point, it comes back almost to Indio, then up a little bit east of Victorville, a little bit north of Lancaster, and almost into Santa Clarita. And then it dashes back out a little bit east and a little bit north, and finally ends up back in Tulare County. So this county represents the bears, the squirrels, and the chipmunks very, very well, because that's what most of this particular area that Assemblyman Conway represents. How this district was ever laid out originally is beyond me, and I am sure you as commissioners will do a much better job than the legislature did 10 years ago. And that it needs to be, I feel, a little bit more compacted and not so much spread out. Our former Assemblyman Bill Mays, I think when he would go visit parts in Mojave, Baker, Needles, Bishop, he would be gone for probably 2 or 3 weeks trying to find his way out through the deserts. In fact, the Riverside County, you may be in Assemblyman Conway's district, I'm not sure. So it's really an interesting district, and I would suggest to you look very, very carefully at uncreating this kind of a district. Yes, because it is just unmanageable for one assembly person to represent that broad of an area.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mann. There are districts like that all over California, and we're not sure how it happened. We kind of have a little bit of an idea. That's why the citizens.
We all have an idea.
That's why the citizens are taking over.
Yes, I'm very well aware of some of the strange snake districts and some of the other ones throughout the state and why they were carved out.
Yes, and certainly compactness is what is called.
Right, and I would suggest too to the commission that you try to avoid fingers into communities.
Yes.
Such as in Bakersfield, Selma, here in the valley, and so forth. But I appreciate your efforts and everything you will be doing. I know it's a difficult job, but it's nice that you got to come down and visit the breadbasket of the world when we have water. Thank you.
Let me ask you one question, Mr. Mann, and that is to help us kind of encapsulate what you've told us. You've shared how extensive it is. Where would you draw the lines for that assembly district? I mean, what would be your recommendation?
I would probably keep the east side of the Sierras in an assembly district, and if you wanted to draw it down to the Needles, Bakersfield, or Baker area, I could see that. But it would be easier if we were to come down into Kern County even a little bit, into closer. This is more related to what our assemblyman would be representing us for. And I think there's more in common there, and try to keep the district within the valley.
Yes.
Rather than sending it to North Edwards and so forth.
Yeah, and let me just interrupt you by mentioning that we're very interested in getting specific information, so our commissioners are going to ask you questions, detailed questions like that. So if you could provide that information to the best of your ability, that would be great. If you can't, then that's fine too. We understand. Do we have a question over there?
I was going to ask a similar question to Commissioner Geary's. Since you're a representative from Tulare County, and we may have others, I'm not sure, but it is interesting for me to know, maybe we can zoom in a little on Tulare County, if there's a difference between maybe the eastern part, western part, and how you see that taking place. I hear you saying that the western part of Tulare may identify itself more with the metropolitan areas in Kern County, or with Kern County in
Well,
general?
I'm saying that Tulare County is primarily an agricultural county, as well as Kern and Fresno. And so I think these boundaries could be drawn more within that particular geological area rather than going over the hills and through the woods.
So the agriculture is more of the community of interest for you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Our congressional district in Washington is very well represented.
Thank you very much. Okay, speaker number 2.
Good evening, members of the Commission. Glad to be here and appreciate the time you're spending to take care of this important task and something that's desperately needed in California and has been for more than 40 years. I'm Mark Robinson. I'm from Stockton, San Joaquin County. And the reason I've come all this way is because it illustrates the absurdity of what was done 10 years ago. As a resident of Stockton, our Congressional District 18 starts in San Joaquin County, goes through virtually uninhabited portions of western Stanislaus County, takes in all of Merced County, goes through some relatively uninhabited or sparsely populated areas of Madera County, and drops all the way into Fresno County, not far from where we are today. As a resident of the city of Stockton, San Joaquin County, I'm in a senatorial district that goes all the way up to where you were last Sunday, near Marysville. It goes up into Yolo County. And my coming down here 3 hours to talk to you for 5 minutes hopefully will send the message, as I'm sure you've heard and you heard from the gentleman before, that the districts can be drawn a little better than that. More to the point, my purpose is to ask you to keep San Joaquin County whole to the extent that you can. With over 500,000 in population, San Joaquin County does not have a single elected representative living in the county. Nobody in the Assembly, nobody in the Senate, and neither one of the congressional representatives. Of the 8, 4 of them don't even live in counties adjacent to San Joaquin County. That's how chopped up San Joaquin County got in 2001. We live in 4, we've been divided up into 4 assembly districts, 2 Senate, and 2 congressional districts. So why should the boundaries of San Joaquin County be respected? Number one, because the Constitution requires that. And it can be done by keeping some population equal, as you've already mentioned, and by respecting and following the Federal Voting Rights Act, and by respecting the communities of interest. Second, it can be, or third, it can be, the boundaries can be respected because the residents of San Joaquin County form 98% of a congressional district. So they only need 10,000 more people. So we don't really need to run to Fresno County to pick up 10,000 people to form a compact, contiguous congressional district. Fourth, these residents of San Joaquin County form 74% of a senatorial district. So again, there's no reason to run off to Yolo County to pick up enough residents. We can pick them up in some of the adjacent counties. Fifth, the boundaries of San Joaquin County can be respected because there's enough residents to form an entire assembly district within the county and 47% of another. And respecting city and county boundaries, I think, would mean to form an entire district within the county rather than scattering them in 4 separate assembly districts. We will be submitting some maps. I don't have them with me here tonight. And I'll be with you again tomorrow afternoon over in Merced, and we'll give you some more details about why San Joaquin County should be kept together and respected and not sliced and diced as it was by another body 10 years ago. And we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Commissioner Geary, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask one more question. This is in my backyard. As you mentioned, you pointed out with the population base of San Joaquin County, in terms of the Assembly, Congressional, Senate populations, there will be a need. What you're saying is you could get a whole assembly district, but there will be a need to put a line somewhere.
Correct.
So I'd like to hear what you would suggest in terms of getting the commission an idea of San Joaquin County and where there may be suggestions for if that line were to happen, what would be some logical places within the county for that line to take place?
Thank you for the question. First of all, we would want to keep cities together. There's only a handful of major population centers: Lodi, Stockton, Manteca, Tracy, and Lathrop. And outside of that, so you keep those cities together, first of all, in drawing an effective assembly district. Secondly, you understand that on the west side of San Joaquin County, you have the Altamont Pass, and there's virtually nobody that lives there. And on the other side of that, you have the East Bay with significantly different interests than San Joaquin County. On the east side is mostly farmland until you get up into the mountains. And again, they have some different interests up there because there's not the farming interests as there is in the Central Valley like there is here. So the natural places to go would be either into southern Sacramento County. For example, the city of Galt is right across the county border and is actually closer to most of the population centers in San Joaquin County than it is to the population centers in Sacramento. Or going just south into Stanislaus County and again making a contiguous and a compact district with people with similar communities of interest. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your 5 minutes,
Thank
and
you.
you're driving down here to share that information. Very valuable
Beautiful
information.
drive.
Thank you. Yes.
Buenas noches. Good evening. Welcome, commissioners. You're undertaking a very, very important task. As you know, California is quickly becoming the most culturally diverse state in the Union. And with that in mind, it has some very particular, special issues that we have to address as the total state. My name is Javier Guzman. I was raised in Huron, California, on the west side of Fresno County. And as a child, in the 1958-59, picked cotton when it was 2.5 cents a pound. Got educated and went to Sacramento, spent 17 years in Sacramento working for the State Health Department, and then returned back to Fresno. Currently, I'm employed with the I-5 Social Services Corporation, and it's a labor of love for me because we get to work with children in child care centers. We have centers in the cities of Mendota, Selma, Huron, Cantua Creek, Kerman, Madera, Del Rey, and Fireball. We serve approximately 700 children. We employ over 200 people in rural, underserved areas of the state of California. The San Joaquin Valley has long been recognized, and it was mentioned tonight, as the breadbasket of the world. Pound for pound, the agricultural workers and their family are probably the most productive labor force in the world because they live on minimum wages, and yet they produce over $30 billion a year in agricultural produce. And that's very important. It is also important to recognize that there have been many attempts over the past century by organizations like the Westside Planning Commission, by National Land for Peoples, who struggle to address the dichotomy of having the richest agricultural land in the world, yet mired in poverty. Today, the struggle continues with the Rural Development Center out of USF Fresno State and the Social Services Corporation. Our communities are a drawback to the grapes of wrath. I have relatives that I have pictures who were picking cotton sitting on Model Ts and Model As in Huron, California, and in the Central Valley. So we've been here for a long time. We're vested, and we want to make sure that the Commission does a good job to represent the people who have dedicated their lives to bring fruits and commodities to your tables. Unfortunately, the picture is not very good. If you look at the areas that we talk about, for example, the Public Institute of California reported in 2009 that child poverty rates in the San Joaquin Valley range between 20% in Kings County and as high as 33% in Tulare County. Nationwide, it's 18%. The James and Wright Foundation reported in 2010 that the household income in the San Joaquin Valley skews lower than California's and clearly lags in the highest income brackets. Perhaps the most alarming is the Oxfam American and Rockefeller Foundation study, Measure of America. The report that poverty, poor health, low graduation rates put the San Joaquin Valley's 20th congressional district, reaching from Fresno County to Kings County, Kern, dead last in the national scorecard that ranks in the well-being of the residents, and it's number 436 nationwide. A recent Gallup survey identified the top 10 national metropolitan areas as the highest percent rates of hardship. Fresno rated number 1 for the hunger capital of the nation. A close look at the communities where I-5 has dedicated its services and where we are located finds the unemployment rates ranging from 20% in Cantua Creek, California, to 4.27 in Mendota. These communities are mostly Latino, 98%, and the families make their living out of agriculture. We have some very, very important issues like 80% of the children live in poverty, 77% of the children have food shortages, and almost 100% of the children qualify for reduced school lunch programs. We're asking that you please consider setting up a community of interest in rural Westside Fresno because it is contiguous and a lot of the issues and problems are very common. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Guzman. Yes. Could you identify what rural Westside Fresno would look like? I see that you have some maps there.
This is the city of Fresno here. Here. These are the...
Thank you. This is Fresno County. These are the existing districts. The city of Fresno is here and here. These are the small cities, many incorporated, that I-5 Social Services is in. Firebaugh, Mendota, Cantua Creek, San Joaquin, Kerman. These are West Side. And traditionally, West Side means agricultural lands that were not originally farmed and delivered water to during the Great Depression. Along Highway 99, that's east of there, the foothills of these giant mountains, the Sierra, is where the Central Valley Project came, small family farmers. This is Interstate 5 along here. This is the most west side and the greatest poverty.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you for the handouts that you submitted. Certainly, that will become part of the record. Thank you.
Thank
you. Let me just mention to the audience that we have almost doubled the number of presenters that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to go with 3 minutes, and then because it's taken a couple of minutes of questions by the commissioner, so that kind of rounds it out. But if within that your presentation you don't quite hit all of the points that you made, then we're going to try to accommodate everybody, and afterwards with a second round. So yes, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner. In all fairness, some of us have attended workshops. We were told that the presentation would be 5 minutes, and you said 5 minutes at the beginning.
Yes, yeah. Our policy is 3 to 5, based on the number of individuals. So again, in response to you, because I respect your comment that if for some reason you feel like you didn't quite get all your points, our practice has been in most areas to open up the mic at the end for an additional round of presentation. So,
thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Deanna Kitamura, the statewide redistricting manager at the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, also known as APALC. First of all, thank you for your concerted effort in holding public hearings throughout California. I am a native of Fresno, so I'm happy to see you here in the Valley. My organization is the largest nonprofit organization in the nation dedicated to providing legal services to and advocating for the civil rights of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. APALC is the statewide anchor for CAPIFER, that's the Coalition of Asian Pacific Americans for Fair Redistricting. My colleague Eugene Lee provided a fairly comprehensive introduction of CAPIFER at the February 26th Commission hearing devoted to receiving information on efforts to educate the public on redistricting. As mentioned by Eugene, CAPIFER is a nonpartisan coalition working in 10 regions in California. Each CAPIFER region has a local lead organization conducting outreach and convening a series of regional meetings. In this region, CAPIFER is working in Fresno County, and the regional coalition is called CAPIFER Fresno. CAPIFER Fresno's efforts are led by Fresno Center for New Americans, a community-based organization serving the refugee communities in Fresno. CAPIFER Fresno has held 3 community meetings to educate the community, obtain neighborhood and community interest information, and obtain community mapping priorities. CAPIFER Fresno will hold 1 more meeting next month to finalize the mapping proposals affecting Fresno County. Statewide, CAPIFER believes in the importance of the Voting Rights Act in protecting the voting rights of racial minorities. CAPIFER also believes in the importance of keeping neighborhoods and communities of interest together so that community voices are not diluted in the redistricting process. In this region, CAPIFER Fresno recognizes and supports a potential Latino Voting Rights Act district that can be drawn that includes the southern part of the city of Fresno. CAPIFER will present statewide assembly and Senate mapping proposals at the May 26th hearing in Northridge. Today, we will focus on a specific neighborhood and community of interest. We will not discuss district lines other than to know and support the potential Latino Voting Rights Act district I just mentioned. There are 4 other speakers here tonight with CAPIFER Fresno who will mainly focus on a Hmong refugee community. I won't bother to introduce them during this time, but at the end of the presentation, we will submit our written testimony and a shape file for the Hmong refugee neighborhood that one of the speakers will discuss. Anyway, thank you for this opportunity to present information about Fresno.
Could you just define what a shape file is?
Oh, it's actually our demographer here can better explain it, or Karen can as well, but this file will actually have the bounding of the neighborhood that we are going to discuss.
All right, thank you.
And we'll also have it up on the screen.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kitamura. Questions? Okay, next speaker. Thank you very much.
Yashong, good evening, commissioners.
I want to thank you for holding the meeting in the region and allowing us to provide our testimony in person. I am a program associate at Fresno Center for New Americans. Fresno Center for New Americans, or Fresno Center, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, community-based organization based in Fresno. It has been in existence since 1991 to provide services to employment, development, cross-cultural training, health education, and advocacy. Fresno Center is the lead organization for the Kappa for Fresno. As the lead, Fresno Center conducted outreach and convened regional meetings. Kappa for Fresno encompasses all of Fresno County. Some of the groups involved as a makeup of the Kappa for Fresno are the UC Cooperatives, which is a small farmers program, Empowerment Institute, the Lao Veterans of America, the Hmong International New Year, Hmong Farmers of America, Cambodian Reconciliation Committee, Southeast Asian Educational Council, Lao Family Community of Fresno, and the Khmer Society of Fresno. Kappa for Fresno understands and supports the Latino Voting Rights Act district that can be drawn and includes the southern part of the city of Fresno and extending southward. We also believe the Commission should keep communities of interest in neighborhoods a whole. Fresno has the second largest Hmong community in the nation. It is estimated by various respected community leaders that there are about 30,000 Hmong, 8,000 Laotian, 7,000 Cambodians in the Fresno County itself. We understand that the census estimates are lower in each community. We believe this is due to the undercount of our communities. The Southeast Asian community shares many socioeconomic traits with the Latino community, such as poverty and employment. Dan will be providing you with more of the stats to show the parallels between our two communities. Because of the similarities that we do share with the Latino community, the Fresno Center has been working with Latino community-based organizations as well, such as the Binational Center for Development of the Oaxacan Indigenous Communications and the Parent Institute for the Development of Institute for Quality Education, which advocates on students' education and the impact of the budget cuts on education. Based on the common work that we do and share socioeconomic characteristics, the policy interest of the Southeast Asian neighborhoods are best served if it's kept whole, included with the Latino community in the Voting Rights Act district. So just want to thank you for your attention and consideration tonight.
That was perfect. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Yes, question.
Mr. Chair, I do not have the opportunity to speak other than number 23, and I've got a commitment back in Tulare County, but I'm a Tulare County supervisor, and I just wanted to come and tell you we're very satisfied with our legislative representation.
I have a commitment, thank you.
I'm not going to be traveling along with your roadshow like many of the other presenters, so I wanted to just present you with the letter that I have here on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Can we focus on the speaker, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time and for coming to the Central Valley. My name is Silas Cha. I am the chairman of the Southeast Asian Education Council. And our group is an advocacy group that consists of parents, educators, and college students who are interested and passionate about the community and especially the quality education that are provided to Southeast Asian students. We, as students and also as community leaders, we have come together to form this group to promote the education and quality of our students. But in order to further these things, we know that we have to also make sure that other things that can come together. Excuse me. I also want to let you know that I am a member of the Kappa Fur, the Southeast Asian Education Council is part of this, and that we support the importance of Voting Rights Act and in keeping our community's interests whole. we want you to respect the fact that we want to keep the fair representation for our community. And we want to let you know that the method shown here tonight is one that we desire for you to keep our community as a whole. To the north, in the southeast Fresno here, we are interested in keeping to the north, that will be Shields, and to the west will be Freeway 41, and it will cut down to Belmont. And from there to the east, to the south would be Jensen, actually, and then to the east would be Temperance. So that in itself is one of the, that represents the gateway to the Southeast Asian community in Fresno. And many community leaders will agree with this, that it is certainly a home and has been a home to Southeast Asians in the last 30 years or so. But this area is significant because it has Hmong farmers in there. It has many other cultural events that truly bring about the richness of our diversity. I want to also bring your attention to the fact that we also have Asian Village in Kings Canyon and Winery. That area is also historical and significant in that it represents Hmong entrepreneurs. It is the only and first Asian American, or Southeast Asian for the matter, entrepreneurs that houses about 40 entrepreneurs at this time. We are pleased to present this to you because our community will be intact and our community will be strong and be able to voice our issues consistently to elected officials and others. Thank you for your time. And I will be submitting the statements in written form to you at a later time.
Yes, Mr. Silas, just one question. You're mentioning your Southeast Asian groupings within this particular area.
Correct.
This is kind of going out to Sanger. Are there any similar communities like in Sanger in those areas, Reedley?
Actually, not really in particular, but I know Sanger, there has been some development there, and I know many Hmong families had begun to become home buyers, homeowners, and they're moving towards east as well.
Yes.
I know that the district there has contacted my organization in the past to delve into cultural clash issues as well as how to reach out to parents. And so those are important things that has been important in the sense that educators there have contacted us to intervene to help with educating our children. So it's a strong indication that Hmong families are certainly moving east in that direction as well.
And do you actually happen to have an estimate for the total population in this area, both of the Hmong population as well as the total population, just if you have a rough estimate?
Right. It is, as indicated earlier by my colleague, that there are 30,000 Hmong, and I'll say about 60% still reside in this area.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Rakapum. I am a community activist and a real estate broker by profession. I thank the Commission for holding a hearing in this region and allowing us to provide our input in person. I reside in the Fresno neighborhood Silas described and have family members and many friends living in the Fresno region. I work and travel widely in the Fresno area because of my job. I am a member of CAPIFER, and I support the importance of the Voting Rights Act and keeping communities of interest whole. I also support the broader principles that have been articulated by the other speakers for CAPIFER. Please respect our community's desire for fair representation. Please do not dilute our votes, and please do not arbitrarily divide our neighborhood. As a realtor, I'm intimately familiar with the neighborhood described by the previous speaker, Silas, in which the core of the Southeast Asian community lives. The neighborhood boundaries have grown over the course of the years. In the past, very few developments within our neighborhood existed east of Clovis Avenue. However, new developments have been built in the last couple of years. The current trend is that many Hmong and other Southeast Asians are moving east by purchasing homes between Clovis Avenue and Temperance, and I myself have sold many homes over the past 5 years in the existing and the new subdivisions within that area. And the easterly trend is not stopping at just Temperance Avenue. I've also sold homes to Southeast Asian families into Sanger. The motivating factors are more income, increased income, the affordability of those homes, the proximity of the land on which many of these Southeast Asian families farm, lower crime, the accessibility to schools and new schools, the freeways, and preserving the cultural value of living near extended family. In addition to my experience as a real estate broker, I have an understanding of the Southeast Asian farming community because my family owns a local Asian market in that neighborhood that Silas described. Although Southeast Asian farmers lease land in different areas within Fresno, primarily in the neighborhoods that we have shown on the map there, the agricultural land in our neighborhood continues to grow local ethnic produce. And much of the produce is supplied by these local farmers who live in our neighborhood. Any decision that will divide this neighborhood will be detrimental to its stability and negatively affect the Southeast Asian community here. Thank you, and thank you for your attention and consideration of our input.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Okay. My name is Danny Chinose, and I direct the Demographic Research Project at the Asian Pacific American Legal Center. We are a CIC. The Census Information Center program is an official program of the United States Census Bureau designed to promote the dissemination of census data to underserved populations. So I'm here to present data supporting the testimony that you've just heard. The latest census data show that Asian American Pacific Islander communities are a large and growing part of Fresno County's demographic landscape. And I'm sorry that the screen isn't pointed the other direction. But Table Fresno 1 shows the size of these communities and their growth. So according to the 2010 census, nearly 92,000 Asian Americans and 1,100 Pacific Islanders live in Fresno County, making up roughly 10% of the county's total population. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are among Fresno County's fastest growing groups, increasing in size 39% and 56% respectively between 2000 and 2010. In contrast, the county's total population grew only 16% over the same period. One of the priorities expressed by CAPA for Fresno today is to draw Fresno's Hmong refugee neighborhood into the county's Latino voting rights seat. Asian Americans in the area, especially Hmong Americans, share much in common with Latinos. Table Fresno 2 also features data from the 2007-2009 American Community Survey 3-year estimates. The second column on your chart captures the percent of a given group that lives below the poverty line, inflation adjusted to 2009. Approximately 22% of Asian Americans and 38% of Hmong Americans in Fresno County live in poverty. This compares to 28% of Latinos countywide and only 10% of non-Hispanic whites. The third column shows the percent of a given civilian labor force, 16 years of age or older that are unemployed. Roughly 10% of Asian Americans and 14% of Hmong Americans are unemployed, compared to 12% of Latinos and only 8% of non-Hispanic whites. The fourth column captures percent of a given group 25 years of age or older without a high school degree. As you can see from that chart, approximately 28% of Asian Americans and almost half of Hmong Americans haven't finished high school. Okay? Nearly half of Latinos also are without a high school degree in the area. Only 10% of non-Hispanic whites are without. And finally, the fifth column in this chart shows the percent of a given group that is limited English proficient or face some difficulty communicating English. As you can see from this chart, the rates of limited English proficiency between of Asian Americans and Hmong Americans are very similar to that of Latinos. So these data show that Asian Americans and Latinos share very similar social and economic characteristics. So in summary, CAPA for Fresno asked the Commission to, one, respect the integrity of the Hmong refugee neighborhood outlined by Silas, and two, recognize common interests shared by Hmong American and Latino communities by drawing the Hmong refugee neighborhood in with the county's Latino voting rights seat. So we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is Tom Marcella. I'm from Fresno. I just ran for the 14th state Senate seat, and I don't know how many people here have run for an office, but this spreads from the tip of Lodi to Layton, from Yosemite over to Mendota, about 300 miles coming or going, 6 counties, and you have to pay a fee on every county to have a little story about who you are. This cost $8,000. I couldn't afford it. And I know in my business, I try to do the right thing. I'm a registered investment advisor in venture capital, and I hear that tonight. I hear stories about the minorities and different special interest groups. I think it's great in America. It's almost like a 12-topping pizza, and you're trying to divide it up so it's going to be fair. It just isn't going to work out that way. But I would make a recommendation. Try not to have any donut holes. Don't take part of Reedley and part of. People said, "Tom, what can I vote for you?" I don't know. I could never figure it out. Part of Reedley, part of Dinuba, part of Sanger, part of Fresno, part of everything. And then they skipped over Merced. They went right over the top of them. Went into Modesto and Stockton, and I mean, I had to reintroduce myself up there. People didn't know who I was. And so I'm just thinking, I'm hoping that what you might want to do is, logically speaking, is start in the middle of the state and the top part of the state and the bottom of the state. L.A. in the bottom, San Francisco on the top, and Fresno in the middle. Start with the largest population. Don't leave us in the middle till last. Because then you end up with these messed up diagrams and donut holes where you say, my gosh, we got to get 10,000 more people. Let's take apart our schools. Just try to do it that way. And try to use markers like a river, a freeway, a large road, a mountain, whatever it may be. That would really help out in the Hmong community. Just great people. Make sure you get those people in that area, and that would usually be a town of a sort. Don't cut them in half. Don't spread it out that way. Try to keep a whole town, a whole city. And then lastly but surely, I hope you have something to do with enforcing the residency laws of the candidates who are running in these districts. And Congress doesn't have that confined, but I ran against a guy who never did meet the district requirements, never did a residency, and he says nobody's ever going to enforce it. And he's on the committee to make sure it's enforced. So I'm just saying, if somehow you can make sure that the Assembly and Senate seats live in their district, and you have to be in that district over a year before you run. That's all I can say. Great talking to you. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Commissioner Aguirre and members of the Commission, my name is Venancio Gaona, and I live in Southeast Fresno at 5209 East Hamilton Avenue. I'm the chair of an organization, community-based organization, El Concilio de Fresno. On behalf of El Concilio de Fresno, we request that this commission consider and develop assembly and senatorial districts that will consider factors and traits such as the ones that I will describe of my neighborhood and community as evidence to support a community of interest argument. Boundaries. Oh, by the way, since we only have 3 minutes, I don't know if I will finish in 3 minutes, but I would like to say you have my full presentation and a map. Boundaries. The following are the general boundaries of an area of concern in the city of Fresno. The northern boundary is Shields, and the southern is American Avenue. The eastern boundary is Minnewawa, and the western is Marks Avenue. Resident population. You've heard some statistics, and mine disagree, or the ones I obtained from the Fresno Unified School District vary from yours. But nevertheless, the county of Fresno has over 900,000 residents. The city of Fresno itself has over 1/2 of those 900,000. The residents I shall refer to are those in the southern half of the city of Fresno. The residents of this area are predominantly low and middle class, and there are pockets of upper middle and upper class. In this area, there is a population that is represented by many ethnic groups: Mexican Americans, African Americans, Hmong, Laotian, Indians, Cambodians, as well as Caucasians. Education. Currently, the Fresno Unified School District is the 4th largest district in the state. It has a population of approximately 75,000. Thank you, ma'am. I wanted to touch the problem of impact on minority students, the unemployment, but I will mention in the minute that I have left the health care. Healthcare services in Fresno, if you live in the southern end, southeast Fresno, you have to travel to the Herndon Avenue area. Recreation is an area that we cannot address here tonight. The library services. The rural conditions. I would end by saying that the rural areas are very similar to those of southeast Fresno. We hope that your commission, in its wisdom and through its ambitious task work, will consider those factors when developing new boundaries for Assembly and Senate districts that must meet the law. Changing demographics, the high unemployment rate, the gradual curtailment of quality public education, the lack of access to health care, and the recession have an impact on how residents respond to and participate in their communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaona. There's one.
I do have a
couple of
question.
questions.
The handout you gave us, you identified the boundary as Southern American Avenue, but yet the map you gave us has a blue boundary line at East Central versus West, or versus the American. So,
it should be American. It should be American Avenue.
Okay, so the Google map that you provided should extend down further to down. So, I mean, I don't want there to be an issue later on. So this is an error, so we need to just draw it down a little bit further.
Yes, in our effort, it's my error in trying to get the maps here to give you copies of everything that I wanted to address.
But I'm glad I caught it. Thank you.
I have a question for our folks doing the maps. In this geography that's just been presented, what would be the population in there? Do they have the map?
Sorry, would you please clarify where the error on the Google map is?
It was supposed to go down beyond Central South to American Avenue.
American.
Yes. She's working on pulling that area up. It's quite a large area, and they're trying to get it under one view.
Perhaps while they pull that up, Commissioner Blanco, Commissioner Galambos-Malloy, let's have a second question.
So, barring the population numbers, which should be coming shortly, as you know, many of the districts we need to draw would be, I'm imagining they're significantly larger in scale than what this population would represent. So we would be really interested in hearing, in addition to folks who have feedback on smaller population areas, if we did need to expand and include this area of interest of yours, which directions would you recommend and why?
This would expand to the east, and it would be because there are other communities of interest in eastern, from Minnewawa going east to beyond Clovis Avenue, but south of what is known as Kings Canyon Avenue. A lot of those students, those families there are working families, and they're very diverse. The area that I have addressed here that we have presented to you is very much inclusive of areas. A majority of it is the city of Fresno, the southern end of Fresno. This is an area that has struggled for many years trying to get services from the city that are equal to northern Fresno. We have suffered in Fresno quite flight since 1960 to northern Fresno and to the city of Clovis. We've gone through de facto segregation.
Population? Did we, Mr. Chairman, did we get the population number? Is that, I thought they had something there.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the computer to come on up. And the figures.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, I am very much aware of what the lady said in terms of that this area is compact and it's smaller than a assembly district, etc. Nevertheless, this would be something that you should consider to keep whole because of compactness.
Yeah, her question was not related to splitting, but to adding some surrounding.
Yes, I understand that. Thank you.
Is that fine? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we have some more questions, we'll bring you on.
Yes, we will follow up and bring you more data at the next hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, thank you for your patience. Next speaker.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Should we just take this off screen for a second while we draw the area? It's a very large area, and she's selecting it block by block.
That's fine. That's fine, Ken. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to take 3 minutes. Good for you. I'm going to keep this pretty basic. I live in Selma, which is at the southern part of Fresno County. The way I'm looking at this, and perhaps it is being totally simplistic, and I'm sure it is, but Fresno County has a population of 930, 450 people. Using that population and your criteria, Fresno County could be its own district. If you make Fresno County its own district, you're dealing with a population who knows each other. I mean, they've lived with each other for umpteen million years, especially in the rural areas like Selma, Reedley, Sanger. All of these are farming communities. You have families there who have lived there for generations. And they understand each other. They know each other. We're dealing with populations of, the German farmers right along with the Japanese-American farmers. Now we also have the Hmong farmers who are in our area, and they're being welcomed, and they're part of our communities. So it would just seem to me that the easiest way to do this would just, to go ahead and make Fresno County its own separate, district, thank you, and, and then go from there. Thank you, that's it.
Could I ask the speaker if she has any suggestions, maybe, that your point in terms of population is very close to the Senate, but in terms of assembly, specifically, and taking into consideration nesting, the county would have to be split in half based on population. Do you have any suggestions, if you're looking at a county perspective, how you would do the split to accommodate an assembly?
First of all, I would, if there is since there would have to be a split, if you just basically kind of, and again, this is my opinion, just just do a north, and just split it this way. East-west. Thank you. Yes, because the way we have it now, like I'm in Selma, and we've got and in that area we have districts coming into each other, where I have neighbors who are not voting for the same person that I'm voting for, which is, it's ridiculous. But if you do it with the east-west split, you definitely have the west side who has its own particular problems, with, it's agriculture, but with the water, situation, that sort of thing. These people are a definite community. You then also have more of the east side, which again is agricultural. The east side agriculture does not have the same problems as the west side agriculture. I think the population itself is pretty much the same both east and west.
Yes, Commissioner Ryan.
I'm sorry, I got a little lost.
Oh, I'm lost
north,
too,
south,
so don't
east,
worry.
and west.
Yeah. I have to have a GPS in my car, and I still got lost coming here, so, you know.
This is what my vision is, you're not talking about a line drawn this way, east-west. You're talking
No,
about...
I'm sorry, this way.
So it's a north-south line.
North-south, and then just, you know, this way.
And can you tell me where you see that what would be that north-south line?
No.
Oh, that's not right there.
99 quarter. I had an answer, 99 quarter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any, yes. All right. Yes.
Can you identify a distinct problem that's different from the east and the west? Because you said that they don't have the same problems. Can you at least identify one or two that differentiates east from west?
Yeah, you're right. The problems basically are, at this juncture, are dealing with water. On the west side, we have larger farms who are dependent upon the water coming through the canal, and I mean they have to have the water. East side, we are not as dependent. Well, we are not dependent at all on the canal, but we do not have the same water problems, because if there's no water, that means there's no jobs, there's extended poverty, and and that everything that goes along with that. The east side, yes, we have problems where there can be, especially with the economy at this point, the jobs aren't there, but that is not because of the water and that sort of thing.
Okay, one last question.
Again, to follow up on the water, you mentioned that on the east side that you're not dependent on the water from the canal. Can you just explain a little bit about the water source or the watershed on the east side?
Okay, I am not an expert on this, so please. I just live there, and I go on the tube on the Kings River. The east side, basically, our water supply is coming out of Millerton Dam. It then comes into the Kings River and then goes down through Sanger, Reedley, comes around into Kingsburg. The farmers are then able to, please, I'm not exactly sure how this works, but the farmers are able then to tap out of that water to irrigate their fields and their vines, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Excuse me, we have the total for that particular area.
All right, so let's move on to that information.
Okay, and it's roughly 240,000 people.
200?
Total population of 240,000.
In what area?
In this particular community of interest that the gentleman, Speaker 10, has outlined.
Commissioner Blanco, is that the information?
Yeah, that is.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Shirley, and I'm one of those East Side farmers, and I might be able to help you a little bit with some of those questions that Tina is not a farmer and might not know how we get our water. But she is correct that our problems on the east side are different from the problems on the west. However, I will have to say that the west side lack of water is impacting us, and it will impact us if we don't solve the west side water situation. Right now, the east side farming is dependent on snowmelt, how we capture it and save it, rather than letting it flow out the river and into the ocean without any way of keeping it for the use for the farmers. Right now, if you look at the Kings River, it is very, very high, and it is just going right out into the ocean. We have to pump our water from wells, and fortunately for this past year, it's been a good year, and our basic population is from the 99 into the mountains and right up into Squaw Valley. So I would say that keeping Fresno County together is a very good idea. If you have to draw from some of the other ones, maybe leave it alone on the Tulare County line. I happen to live about less than a mile from the Tulare County line in Reedley, and my farm is in Tulare County. So just consider those kinds of things when you, I think barriers of rivers and mountains are very important to look at, and how we access those, what kind of roads and population still serving our lighter populations in those areas and covering them. But the basis would be down into Reedley and into Selma and Sanger and all of Fresno County. Tulare County has their own area to the south. Have any questions?
Any questions? Just one question about the west side. You said that there's serious issues with availability of water on the west side. Is most of that water coming down the Frying Kern Canal? Or what is the source of water for the west side?
The Frying Kern Canal is on the east side of the valley,
So
I am.
So what would be the source of water for the west side?
The Delta Canal.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
The other canal goes straight into Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take one more speaker, and then we're going to close shop. No. We're going to take... Yeah, we're going to take one more speaker, and then we're going into what we call a bio break. So we're going to take a short 10-minute break. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian, and I live in Fresno. I'm here because I believe in representative democracy, and therefore it is imperative that the interests of my community are held intact, that they are not divvied up, so that we can have effective representation in the state legislature and in Congress. So I want to take a few minutes here to describe the characteristics of my immediate community. I've provided a map just of my immediate community. It is relatively a new development south of Shaw and west of Fresno 99, or Freeway 99, which serves as a physical boundary that separates us from other parts of town. There is also a light industrial corridor that further separates us. My area is quasi-rural, where the city meets the country, if you will. We are a neighborhood of working and middle-class people in general. It is certainly not affluent. It is the antithesis of many North Fresno neighborhoods where the people are better educated, typically college educated, and live in opulent homes. They have more assets in terms of amenities and outlets for entertainment and other investments by business. The neighborhoods are cleaner and safer and possess better public schools. My neighborhood is ethnically and racially diverse. On my block there are white, Hispanic, East Indian, and even biracial families. This also stands in contrast to much of North Fresno that is monochromatically white. In terms of occupation, we are a mix of white and blue-collar workers. There are 4 Fresno County sheriffs in my neighborhood. My neighbor across the street is unemployed. My neighbors are truckers who occasionally park their semis around the corner. My other neighbor is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband is a businessman. So as I said, it's a mix of blue-collar and white-collar workers. The majority of these families are first-time homeowners. We have only seen a couple of foreclosures. My mom and I travel nearby streets, to keep an eye on any changes in the neighborhood. These are largely new homes. Our house was built in 2009, and there's a number of two-story houses to give you an idea of the neighborhood that I live in. So in conclusion, I want to underscore that my community deserves representation at the state and federal level that reflects the attributes and characteristics that I have just described. This is imperative because there is a litany of communities that are similar to mine that also deserve adequate and fair representation in our governing system. I feel strongly that my community connects to those districts such as the southeast section of Fresno, West Fresno, and even to the rural communities of the West. In fact, I know both intricately because I lived in Kerman for many years, up until 2 years ago when I moved to Fresno. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, questions?
Yes.
Commissioner on time.
Brian,
Is this a neighborhood you're defining for us?
Yes, indeed. That's just a neighborhood. Just to kind of give you just a, the community of interest that I live in. It's very distinct from Shaw is a major artery that separates. Fresno is a city of, it's a tale of two cities. South of Shaw, it's very different from north of Shaw. So I'm content with the assembly district that I live in, but congressionally and senatorially, I don't feel like I have adequate representation in that regard. So south of Shaw, I feel that my community that I outlined for you guys is very similar to the southeast community in Fresno, the western part of Fresno County as well. So if you guys can please take that into consideration, when you guys are concocting, the districts.
What did you say? Which assembly districts and Senate?
Well, I live in the 31st Assembly District, and I feel content in that district. I feel represented. At the federal level, on the 19th district, I don't feel adequately represented. And also my senatorial district, I don't feel represented. But I am content with the 31st Assembly District. So those are just my thoughts, and if you guys can take them into consideration, I would be very much appreciative.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Murillo. All right, at this time we'll take a short 10-minute break. So it is now 7:35. So at 7:45 we'll resume. Let's go. Okay, we're going to resume our hearing.
Pretty good.
We hope that everybody that's outside in the lobby can come back in. So as soon as they see how quiet we are, I'm sure they'll understand. So that's an old high school trick, to get teenagers focused. You know how teenagers are. So we're going to resume our hearing with speaker number 14. Yes, ma'am.
Buenas tardes.
15?
Yeah, 14.
14.
My name is Gloria Hernandez. I want to thank the members of the commission for allowing me to testify. And I also want to welcome you to the San Joaquin Valley. And although we're known as the breadbasket of the world, it has been said that the valley, if the valley were a nation, we would be the 8th largest economy in the world. However, the United States Census Bureau issued a report entitled The American Community Survey in 2007, which found that 6 San Joaquin counties had the highest percentage of residents living below the federal poverty level in 2006. The report also revealed that the same 6 counties were among the 52 counties with the highest poverty rate in the USA. I don't think much has changed since 2006. And if it could be heard, if it could be said, I'm willing to be that things are so much worse in the valley today. In fact, today, the Fresno Bee Online carries an article that the Fresno County unemployment rate is 18.4 in March compared to 18.1 in February. As a resident of the city of Fresno, I come before you to offer my views of my community of interest. You may have heard that 2009 Fresno was found to be one of the dumbest cities in America by the Daily Beast because less than 20% had 4-year degrees and lacked voter engagement. I would bet that most of this applies to my community of interest, which lies south of Shaw, north of North Avenue, east of Hayes, and west of Clovis. My community of interest includes several zip codes, and I didn't do the population. I don't have aides and people like that who help me. Most of which include low to middle income, living up to 50% of the poverty level to approximately 51,432. I got that from city data, which is kind of old, but algo's algo. Many of the people in the community of interest are renters after having lost their homes to foreclosures after losing their jobs. Many have relocated to the homeless areas in our southwest areas. Many are paying for substandard housing or shared housing with other unrelated persons in room and board situations. My community of interest is diverse with high numbers of Hispanic, Asian, blacks, and poor whites. I myself live with neighbors who are Hmong, Hispanic, blacks, and poor whites in the Mayfair district. We try to watch out for each other and the children in the neighborhood and do not necessarily rely on police for various reasons. Oh, God. I'm sorry. My community has fewer major supermarkets. Many depend on local mom and pop stores, which often have higher prices in comparison to the north side. There are more liquor stores than fresh fruit markets. Many of the green spaces that used to be managed by the city have been contracted to other providers. We have fewer bicycle lanes and walking lanes in the north side. While the north side walking lanes are paved or lined with trees, ours are treeless and fenceless canal banks. My community of interest also has the highest numbers of PC 209s who are homeless and live in super standard conditions. Okay.
Did you submit this in writing to us?
I have it, but I want to make a correction. So when you see 99, I want to put it to east of Hayes. Yeah, east of Hayes Avenue.
Okay.
Because I want to include the black side of town and mostly Latino side of town, also on the other side of 99. I apologize, I ran out of time. I do want you to know that we're not all negative, as bad as it sounds. We do have a community. We do hang out together. But we're very poor, and we like to stick together and try to better our community.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
I'm hungry.
You said something about the growth.
The growth of Fresno is really interesting because when I was going to college back in the 70s, the farthest north, I would say a little bit north of Shaw Avenue, now it's all humongous all the way to the river. The board and the city recently have now started looking at the northwest of Shaw Avenue, which is by the 99, to develop more housing. My position is we don't have the water. And we don't have the money to be developing more houses to begin with.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Next speaker, 15.
We'll be going to speaker 16 next.
16.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Kevin Hall, and I'm a resident of Fresno. I spent my boyhood in Fireball. I'm a lifelong resident of the San Joaquin Valley. I regard most of the valley as my community of interest. And as Gloria said, welcome to the valley. Valley political folklore has it that Bobby Kennedy once said, if fascism ever arises in the U.S., it'll come out of Kern County. So I hope your meeting went well last night. You seem to have emerged unscathed. I'm just giving you a preliminary map of data that, I'm with Communities for a New California. We're a 501c4 nonpartisan nonprofit organization engaging citizens in communities of low income and communities of color. The map you're looking at is just one set of data we're trying to have updated by some of our partners, community partners, in cooperation with UC Davis. And you can see that it's point source pollution sites as listed by the Environmental Protection Agency as toxic polluters, and you'll see the relationship between those and communities of color and low income. This is on 2000 U.S. Census data, however. We have a series of such indices that add up to essentially environmental hazard map. And you'll see that it links quite directly to, again, low-income families throughout the San Joaquin Valley. I reject suggestions that Fresno County should be whole as a district. That would be wrong in several ways. But we will, again, be submitting full data and comments at a later date. We're kind of in a rush to meet this deadline. Thanks for coming to the Valley first, but we'll see you, I think, in June with more detail. There was one question from Commissioner Blanco about growth in the city of Fresno. We've reached the river to the north. If you look at Herndon Avenue up to the San Joaquin and Willow Avenue, which is our boundary with Clovis, there's no growth that way now. We're out of room there. So it's essentially east of Clovis Avenue for the large, newer homes, and in some parts a little further east than that. And then to the Brian Murillo described growth to the northwest on the other side of 99, but that is primarily, as he described it, more working class housing.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you for your time.
So you are number 17. Okay, let's focus on the speaker, please. Thank you very much.
My name is Phoebe Seaton. I'm also with Communities for New California, or CNC, and again, we'll be presenting written testimony and maps at a later date, but I wanted to take this time to put one particular community of interest on your radar, and that is disadvantaged or low-income unincorporated communities, of which there are hundreds just in the San Joaquin Valley and hundreds more throughout the state. Shared characteristics among these communities are unemployment and underemployment, high poverty, lack of educational opportunities, unsafe roads, and few, if any, public transit opportunities and options, contaminated drinking water, inadequate basic infrastructure, including no public wastewater systems and failing septic systems, lack of recreational opportunities, lack of access to healthy and affordable foods, and the list could go on. An estimated, in just the San Joaquin Valley, 500,000 people live in disadvantaged, unincorporated communities, and over 1 million throughout the state. However, these communities have been historically and continue to be systematically underrepresented in state and federal decision-making, as evidenced by being left off of the census, not being recognized as geographic places on the census, and underrepresented in federal and state funding programs, including the American Reinvestment Recovery Act, and policies at the federal and state level that do not address the needs and interests of these communities. And so we will be presenting maps and testimony in the future to ensure that individual communities are not divided and stay whole, and that districts fairly and fully represent the interests of those communities. Thank you.
Yes. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Speaker number 18.
Buenas tardes. Hablaré de la otra California, la del lejano oeste.
Señor,
Okay. Unless somebody else wants to translate,
yes,
I will. Is there a volunteer from the audience to translate? You want to go ahead? Thank you.
I would appreciate it if you could do it simultaneous, so if you break in between.
Yeah.
Correct. Rather than doing a summary,
Yeah.
simultaneous would be preferred.
Yeah.
Trate de hablar en sentencias pequeñas para poder traducir.
That's the microphone.
Entonces dije, hablaré de la otra California, la del lejano oeste.
I'll talk about California a little bit.
La otra California, la del lejano
I'll talk
oeste.
about California, the other California, the West.
Mi nombre es Juan Balbino, voluntario en la promoción del
My
voto.
name is Juan Balbino. I'm a volunteer in promoting voting on behalf of the
La Fundación Dolores Huerta.
Dolores Huerta Foundation.
Vivo en Hanford por 9 años.
Live in Hanford, have lived in Hanford for 9 years.
Mayoritariamente he trabajado en lechería.
I mainly work in the dairy industry.
Cuando estuve en la high school fuimos un viaje en un grupo a una región menonita en
When I
México.
was in high school, I had the opportunity to travel to a region in Mexico,
A una región menonita en México.
a Mennonite region in Mexico.
Le preguntamos a una joven en qué se divertían.
We asked a youngster there, what do you do for recreation?
Y ella contestó preguntando qué es diversión.
She responded by saying, what is recreation?
Me impactó el que no sabía ella qué era la diversión.
I was very impacted by the fact that she did not know what recreation meant.
Les pregunto,
I asked,
¿les impactaría algo similar?
uh,
¿Les impactaría algo similar?
would something similar impact you?
Esta área es la mayor productora de leche
This area here
del
is
país.
a major milk producer for the country.
En la lechería existe un sistema de trabajo de esclavitud moderna y desintegración familiar.
On the dairies, there exists a modern form of slavery and a disintegration of the family unit.
Donde trabajé, 1 de cada 3 trabajadores tienen divorcio.
Where I've worked, 1 out of 3 employees has been divorced.
Desintegración de familias,
Disintegration of families,
largas jornadas,
long working hours,
turnos quebrados,
broken shifts,
horarios que se intercambian de día a noche,
shifts that tend to change from one day to the next.
¿Cuál es el objetivo?
So what's the point? What's the objective?
Si ustedes le preguntan a algún trabajador de lechería,
So if you ask an employee that works in a dairy,
tú descansas, tomas tus descansos de 10 minutos
do
2
you
veces
take
al día,
your 10-minute breaks twice a day?
te pagan el día extra cuando trabajas doble por el cambio de turno,
Do you get paid an extra day when you work double because of the shift change?
el tiempo extra te lo pagan.
Do you get paid overtime?
Les puedo garantizar que nadie va a saber que deben tener esas
I
condiciones.
can guarantee you that nobody's going to know that they should be able to work under those conditions.
Les testimonio que por favor vayan a cualquier lechería,
Part of my testimony is
cualquier
when you go to any dairy,
calle que vayan
on any
y
road,
pregunten, pero cerciórese que
and
les
ask,
reconocen la pregunta, porque no van a saber de qué les
and
preguntan.
ask these questions because the people that work in the dairies will not know what it is you're talking about.
No hay agua.
There's no water.
Un compañero en un año perdió sus riñones, ahora está en México
A friend of mine in about a year lost his
hospitalizado.
kidneys. He's now in Mexico in a hospital.
La propuesta es que se identifiquen estas fronteras.
What I'm propositioning is that you take a look at these avenues.
Estamos en la misma California.
We are in the same California.
Nos retienen impuestos de los cheques.
They take our taxes from our paychecks.
En cada área que ustedes vayan existirán condiciones similares.
In whatever area you go to, there will be similar conditions.
Por eso pido que tomen en consideración este enfoque
This is why I want you to take into consideration this focus,
y que la gente no va a venir a decírselos.
because people aren't going to come to tell you.
Deben implementar el sistema que ustedes lo vayan a preguntar para que puedan ver esa
Implement
frontera.
a system that you go and you take a look at these different avenues.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, señor Juan. Any questions? Muchas gracias. Yes. All right. Speaker number 19. Thank you for doing that. Number 19, 20, 21.
I know 21.
22? Yes. Mr. 22.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having this down here in Kings County. We appreciate it. My name is Jim Verboon. I'm a local farmer. To explain the commonality of the water situation, we almost have two valleys here. We have the valley from the central part to the east that gets the water from the Sierras, Pine Flat, Kings River, and Millerton, Frank Kern Canal, Cahuilla, and Kern Rivers. The east side doesn't have as dramatic a water problem yet that the west side has. The west side has very limited groundwater. They're reliant upon the California aqueduct. The water comes out of the delta. As you are well aware, the pump restrictions is drying that up and turning it into a dust bowl. The areas of commonality, I'm simply going to talk about the congressional districts because they're larger and easier to make more common. It seems to me that Kern County makes a nice little neat number because there's about the right number of people there for Kern County to be one congressional district. When you take the balance of the people left out of Kern County, you add them to Tulare and Kings County, it seems to make a nice little neat picture of the common rural areas. Tulare, Kings, and northern Kern are
have a lot in common, and the demographics and the people all kind of share the same problems. The city of Fresno is really the metropolitan area of the San Joaquin Valley. You have the city of Fresno, you have the cities of Stockton, Modesto, and the Turlock area up there. Those are the metropolitan areas in the county. It seems like they should be kept together as a congressional district. And the senatorial districts, while being very closer in size to the congressional districts, might have the same commonalities. It might save you a little bit of work if you can kind of go from those. And then the hardest work is going to be the assembly districts, as you know, because a lot of different representations you're going to have to come up with. I realize that you guys have a very difficult job to do. And one thing, you're here in Kings County, and we feel disenfranchised because we have areas of interest, but the CD20 that we're currently in was drawn a disaster. It's one of the biggest districts in America, and it's the poorest district in America. And it's made poor because of the water situation. The west side has become more unreliable in its water supply, and the more unreliable that water supply is, the more it leaves this area, and with the water goes our economy, goes our jobs. And we have some of the poorest and some of the best people that you'll ever want to meet, but they're poor. So we would like to see these districts constrained and made smaller, and more common interests, as I described to you. I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
I believe we're going to go 25, 27, and then 29.
Okay. Number 25.
I was kidding about the DMV line. There we go. Good evening. My name is Kathleen Satomi Omachi. I live at 759 F Street in Reedley, so I can't say that I could carpool with the folks from Fresno. But part of what I want to talk about tonight is the history within the API community here in the Valley. And I want to talk about the full Valley because you've heard quite a bit about the Fresno area, which does have a long history, and that's where my background. My family's been here for over 113 years. We don't look like it, but we've been here that long. I've been in the Valley myself for almost all of my life, at least, we'll just say 60 years. I had the pleasure of testifying 10 years ago, and with any luck, I will see everybody here in 10 years. But what I did want to let you know is that you have pockets of communities that have long histories here in the Valley. Fresno Chinatown, and I'll just speak briefly on that, is actually composed from about 1860 of communities made up from the African American, Armenian, Basque, Chinese, Japanese, Italian, Portuguese, Germans from Bulgaria, Russia, Mexican Americans, Greek, and Filipino communities. And there was a reason why you have a 17-block area of any community, why you would have such a concentration of ethnic minorities. And we're all aware of what that would be. They were told that they could not live anyplace else. If you look at every other concentration of ethnic minorities throughout the Valley, you will have that same situation for them. But within the API community, you had legislative mandates that worked against families coming together or being together. We had anti-miscegenation laws, which precluded any Asian individual from marrying a Caucasian woman without facing imprisonment. Those in growing up in Reedley was the Porte family, of which I was very, very proud, but they didn't have to run, otherwise they would be arrested. What I do want to let you know is that within all of the communities within the API, which is the Asian Pacific Islander community, the history here in the Valley has been a long struggle for recognition. We do have individuals who are on the city council for the first time in its history in Fresno. We have an Asian American on the Tulare Board of Supervisors. But what's happening is that we do need your assistance in looking at the communities, particularly in the farming areas. And that's what ties the bonds, that's what the bond that holds the communities together. People started in the area of farming when they were allowed to share crop on some of the lands, and that's the same situation now with the refugees. But it's sharecropping. It is not owning the land or the houses they're in. One of the things that you may think with the API community, and it's 4 seconds, it's going closed, it's coming down, is that, I know, nasty noise, is that what you're looking at, you may think is as an API person who has broken the glass ceiling. But you're also looking at an individual who grew up in a house that we didn't own that did not have a wooden floor. So things do change, but it changes very slowly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? I think some of the testimony we've been getting, the historical aspect is really rich and helps us get a flavor for the area. I'm just wondering if maybe you might want to consider at some point a graphical representation of the history and submitting that to the commission, maybe in an email. That's really, in the end, is what will help us as we're doing
That
maps.
would be fine,
So
because
just
there's
for consideration
representation
for-
throughout the community.
Yeah, for others that are doing a historical background to link that with some suggestions for actual mapping.
Thank you. One of the other comments or questions that came up on was using 99 as a dividing line. What you do need to know historically is that's what divided up ethnic communities, much like the subway systems from the East Coast across. They went across communities that had no power and no voice politically. And that's exactly what divided 99 through the valley, because it was put in an area that people were not going to fight it. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. 27.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Dolores Gallegos, and I am from Hanford. So we'll be addressing Kings County. I like to express the interest or the community of interest district to, whenever you start drawing these lines, to please keep in mind to keep our county together, because I know that 10 years ago after the census was taken, there was a lot of talk and a lot of rumors about splitting Kings County, and as you can see, our population is 152,000 plus, or almost 153,000. And so we are a small county, but we do want to stay as a whole because of our socioeconomics, our educational levels, and also a reminder that we are one of the 4 counties in the state of California under the Section 5 Voting Rights Act. So if I heard earlier talk about keeping Fresno as a whole, because our assembly district and our Senate district also encompasses Kings County, Tulare County, Kern County, and Fresno, parts of Fresno County, parts of Tulare County. So we are taking in the counties, our neighboring counties around us. If you decide to keep Fresno as a district or count of their own, don't send us to Kern County, because we're really, really far from Kern County. We're a lot closer east, west, and even north. Of course, Fresno's north of us, and then in Fresno County, part of the rural areas, which is also almost equivalent to the socioeconomical, interests that we have here. I mean, we want to make sure our communities go to the same parks and visit, if families want to get together for Easter, make sure we go to these parks that are pretty much in our districts, and also to see people that are representing our interests. And I think that's my short presentation, because we are a smaller county than the ones that have come before me.
Yes.
And so if you have any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question as a representative from Kings County. So the last 2 nights, yesterday we were in Bakersfield, and the previous night we were in San Luis Obispo. And being a county that borders some of the western counties in California, I know what we heard in Bakersfield was there's some districts that cross over the mountains and capture part of San Luis Obispo and capture part of Kern. And you were mentioning in terms of not feeling maybe as connected with Kern County. Do you feel connected with the coastal communities, or do you feel there's a geographic boundary that would separate you from the county? If you're looking at counties that that touch you.
Yeah.
There are western counties as
We
well.
would probably be closer to Kern County than the.
So you would prefer Kern?
I mean,
over
if we
the-
had to, yes. Even though it's quite a drive. I think this gentleman earlier was talking about all the miles. I believe our assembly district also encompasses like 342 or 343 miles from the furthest city and area in Kern County all the way to, the furthest in Fresno County. So it's a trip. So, but I don't think that we would have the commonalities with San Luis Obispo County, although I know that we're bordered there with our Avenel counties county there. But I don't know. Kern County is still quite a ways.
Just like to get your perspective on that. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
29.
Good evening, and again, thank you for being here. My name is Robert Montion, and I'm the president of the League of United Latin American Citizens, Chapter 3124. And I live in Tulare, which is Tulare County, of course, and I'm a lifelong resident of the Central Valley. And in fact, I was a hospital CEO for 30 years in hospitals from Stanislaus to Kern County. So I have a pretty good sense for where we're at. In much of the Central Valley, the practice of minority-majority rule is the norm. The explosive growth of the Latino population has created a dynamic in which demographic realities have simply not translated into equitable governance of public institutions. Historically, I think we are, and we're living through some of that history right now, we have learned that minority-majority rule has an inevitable consequence. Fortunately, the Federal Voting Rights Act has created a civil, albeit divisive and expensive process for remediation of this particular grievance. The end result has been the Federal Voting Rights Act lawsuits in this area have been pervasive. Modesto, Madera, Hanford, Tulare County, multiple suits in Tulare County, Dinuba and Tulare. And it is highly likely that Tulare County will face a similar lawsuit because its efforts to review districts is either naive or insincere. And I don't know which one it is at this point, but it's one of the two. Taxpayers of the Central Valley have paid over $5 million in fees for lost or settled litigation under the Voting Rights Act. And interestingly, Supervisor Pete Vanderpool, who is a good young public official, eloquently made my point for me earlier when he entered into the record a statement that says he's very satisfied with the way things are, with the status quo. Mr. Vanderpool represents a district that is extremely poor and is 70% Latino. He is not Latino and he is not poor. So when he argues that he is satisfied with the status quo, none of us should be surprised by that. The current system works just fine for those who embrace the idea of minority-majority rule. The Central Valley lags the rest of the state in terms of embracing the noble goals of the Voting Rights Act. I urge you to give criterion number 2, complying with the Voter Rights Act, great weight as you look at the Central Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montion. Number 30, next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Vincent Salinas. From the city of Visalia. I serve on the Visalia Planning Commission. I just want to echo some of the earlier comments made by Mr. Mann, who I'm familiar with, about keeping Tulare County as a whole. You know, if you look at putting an assembly district in, we're about besides $20,000 short. We're 20,000 people population short of having a full assembly district. Going into Indio County, San Bernardino County doesn't really fit into the community of interest for Tulare County. Tulare County, as one of the gentlemen earlier said, is Tulare County is more and familiar and community interest with Kern, King, and Fresno County. We're a strong economic community that primarily is agriculture. We depend on water. Some of the people earlier mentioned water. We're dependent on the Bryant Dam for water in Tulare County. 50% of our water comes from there. And by joining efforts with other counties, we have stressed the point for California to provide more water and build more waters so we could have a strong agricultural base in these 4 different counties. I would like to see that Tulare County be kept intact. If you border us with another county, I hope it's within Kern, King, or Fresno County. Serving over the mountains, the other gentleman said, doesn't serve us any interest. Thank you, and I really thank you for being here. This is my 4th time in participating in redistricting. Back in the 80s, 90s, and 200. In 200, we were happy to finally have a representative for Tulare County from our own county, and we also have someone who's representing us from our county in Congress. We're still separated by some of the Senate and Assembly districts. We have 3 senators, we have 3 Assembly persons represented us. So I hope that when you look at redistricting, to make sure that Tulare County is kept intact. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
One question.
One question. I'd just like to ask our mappers, can you pull out a little bit so I can see the eastern part of Tulare a little better? Okay. And maybe you can help me a little bit with my geography, topography. I'm assuming that the eastern part of Tulare goes up into...
Sequoia National Forest. We see Highway 395 there. We pretty close border that highway.
And that's on the eastern side?
Correct. That's mostly mountains.
And I see there's maybe a couple, well, one community on that side. Do you think the individuals on the far eastern side of Tulare County identify more with the valley, or do you think they identify more with
Which community are you talking about?
I see, I apologize, maybe I'm after. It looks like there's a yellow urban area here.
Oh, no, Bishop, I don't think they would identify with Tulare County.
I'm sorry. That's not Bishop. That's not Bishop. That's not Bishop.
That's Kennedy Meadow.
Are there, maybe I should rephrase that. Are there people on the eastern side of significant populations? That's not Winnie. Okay. So I just wondered if you feel comfortable talking about the population that's on that side.
I know that I believe Kennedy Meadows is in Tulare County. It's the southeastern part of it, and it's representative by one of our supervisors in that particular area. And I think if we include them, because that population includes into Tulare County, we probably don't have the same kind of interest, but typically there would be more of forestry, that type of business in that particular area.
Okay. Thank you. Trying to get a picture of the whole county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas. Okay, next speaker, please. Thank you very much. 31.
My name is Christopher Green. My wife and I live in Madera. I'm here to talk to you about using mathematics to try to prevent gerrymandering. Now, Honorable Commissioners, the purpose, what I propose is a guideline that furthers a mandate of your redistricting commission to ensure that the districts are compact. I propose a guideline that is not in inherent conflict with any of the other mandates that the Commission has. And I propose a guideline that is based upon simple mathematics and is utterly blind to any possible political calculus. My proposal actually is to use a formula to describe and define an objective standard for what compactness means. Now, every two-dimensional shape and nature can be mathematically described. And there's a ratio between its area and its perimeter. The size or units of the measure of the geometric shape really don't matter. The only thing the size doesn't matter. What units you have doesn't matter. It's just what the shape is. It's the nature of the shape that makes the difference. Now, if you were, in an ideal world, if you were to form the most compact district possible, it would have the shape of a circle, because a circle is the most compact of all two-dimensional shapes. We all know that there's a familiar ratio you remember from grammar school. You remember pi r squared and pi times the diameter. Well, if you were to start out, for instance, with a circle that was 3 inches or 3 feet or 3 miles in diameter, and you compare the ratio of the area to the perimeter, what you find out is that you've got a certain ratio. In order to equate the area measure with the linear measure, you'd use a square root, and the ratio of the perimeter to the square root of this really compact shape is 3.54. As you go to other shapes, even if you use a larger one with 10, the ratio is the same. In the case of a square, it turns out the ratio is 4 to 1 instead of 3.5 to 1. In the shape of a rectangle that's 3 by 9, it's 4.6 to 1.9. Now let me show you an irregular shape. If you'll look at the diagram that you've received, you can see that an irregular shape with the same height and width as the previously described rectangle has a ratio of 4.876. I want to show you finally figures 6 and 7. Figure 6 shows you Assembly District 29, which you can see is reasonably compact, and it has a square root area of less than 5. But if you go to 7, which is one which is highly irregular, it's not at all compact, it has a ratio that's greater than 6. So I ask you to consider, obviously there's a very short time to give this presentation, but I wish you would consider a ratio, a mathematical ratio, to try to define what compactness is, because this can be incorporated. There is off-the-shelf software right now that will show you what the ratio is between in any geometric shape between the perimeter and the area. So this can be done quite easily. It could be incorporated into a computer program and make the whole job, all of the calculations and everything you have to do for this, could incorporate that and make it very easy for you.
Yes, question, Mr. Barone.
Mr. Green, thank you for this extra effort on your part. I want to make sure I understand your intent. I take it you're not saying we should be drawing circles for the districts, but using this ratio.
Not at all.
Yeah, a format to determine the extent to which the districts we draw are compact.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker. That's it. All right. All right. Is there
Chairman?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes.
If there's extra time, I'd like to ask the previous speaker a question or two. Have you done the analysis on the existing districts and what are the ranges of the ratio? And second question is, on a numerical basis, what would you, in your study, consider to be a acceptable ratio for the new district map?
Well, I'm not a mathematician, and I'm a designer. And the last time I've forgotten every spec of calculus that I took in college, so I can't tell you exactly. But I can tell you that if you look at the last diagram there, as I looked through the congressional districts, I picked one that, or assembly districts, I picked one that looked like it was a pretty bad example of what a district should not be shaped like, and the ratio is greater than 6. My thought is that we could get something that was around 4.5, and if it used 4.5, that would be not exactly square, but it would be something pretty similar to figure number 6, maybe a little bit more compact than figure number 6.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any individuals in the audience that would like to, if you haven't spoken before, to address the commission and provide some input to the commission? Is there anybody who has already spoken who might want to add some additional testimony to your presentation? Is there anybody else that would want to? Is there? We're not used to leaving this early, but is there anybody else that might want to add to the information that was presented by another presenter? So.
Do the commissioners have any questions?
Yeah. Would the, okay. All right. No, we need to.
Just on mic, please.
I'm Steve Robinson from Hanford. To my knowledge, there's nothing at Kennedy Meadows. I was there as a kid on horseback except long brown rattlesnakes. It's pretty high elevation there. And you really need to take a look at California as a dividing line. There's a crest on the Sierra Mountains, and there's only 2 roads across, So you can't connect from here to there unless you go through Kern County and back up through Inyo County. Or you can go through Yosemite in the summertime. Okay? But take a look at those maps, because there's really not a lot of people living up at 14,000 feet.
Thank you. As a commission, we try and balance keeping an open mind and not a preconceived notion of areas with at least some idea of where we are. So I appreciate you filling in those gaps. Thank you.
A related comment that we heard in Yuba City, Marysville, was we are the people that live above the fog but below the snow. But are there any questions from the commission?
Yes. Yes. Last night we heard testimony from your neighbors to the south about the prison-based population. I know there's a Corcoran prison here. Can you just that's Tulare. Okay.
Could we have?
We would like to know where I'll get to the point. Where are those towns located? In Kings County. In Kings County.
Okay. Thank you for coming up to the mic because we want to capture this information.
My name is Chris Jordan, and in reference to the prisons that are in our county, there are 3 prisons. There are 2 in Corcoran, which is about 20 miles south of us here, and the 3rd prison is in Avenel, which is about 45 miles from here, which brings a tremendous amount of adds population to our community. However, they're incarcerated, they're non-voters, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, they're all in Kings County, that's correct.
Could you describe the population of these? Are they all fairly similar in size?
I believe Corcoran has the largest population, and I don't know the specific numbers. I believe it's something like 10,000 in Corcoran, and I believe it's something around 8,000, 7,000 to 8,000 in Avenel.
Thank you.
Kalinga is about 50 miles from us, but that is Fresno County, and they actually have 2 or 3 prisons there as well.
Yes. Let me ask a question about the economic relationship between the prison and local communities. What could you say about that?
Well, these are state jobs, and many locals are able to get jobs in the prisons, which is beneficial to our community. However, because it is a state system, employment system, people move into our region because economic costs are cheaper here than living in Monterey. And so we do have diverse from all over the state that come to work in our county.
Yeah, and perhaps you could offer some comments on how these prisons come to be located in this area.
You don't want to go there.
Well, that's a very complex question, but simply we are a depressed economic area. Agriculture obviously is our main industry. Some of the local communities sought out having prisons in our communities because it did bring jobs, which is beneficial to us. But with that comes along with many other challenges as well. And because it does tax our local criminal justice system because they commit crimes within the prison system, therefore the local taxpayers contribute to having to deal with the cost of convicting or trying them locally. It does add to challenges in terms of our health care. There is a priority for handling the prison population when they come to the hospitals for emergencies. They take priority. And so, those things affect us in many, many different ways.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
While standing, if I can just, I'm already here, so I might as well just make some other comments. Thank you, first of all, for coming to Hanford. This is a very important process to us as a state, but in Kings County, obviously, we are one of the smaller counties within the state. With that, a lot of times, our voting block is very limited, and so representation, even though we are fortunate to have our assemblymen from our area, Kern County has a real dominant influence on the time and energy that our local representation has. I'm thankful that, is it Ms. DeGillo?
That's good enough.
How do you say that?
It's DiGiulio.
DiGiulio.
Like the pizza, DiGiorno.
DiGiulio.
Yeah.
Obviously representing the Central Valley, it's important that we have representation on the panel as well, and so I'm really happy that you're there. But please do keep in mind that it's important to us that, first of all, this process is transparent. We are very interested. Why is it that we're here? Is because the people have felt that the process in the past has not been fair and has not represented the people's wishes. And so hopefully that as you continue on this course, that again being transparent and hearing the voice of people in Kings County as well as Madera and some of the smaller counties, hopefully you hear us and add that to your decisions as you make these districts, because our community is a lot different. I noticed that the majority of you are from our larger areas, San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, et cetera. And so a lot of times our issues are not really heard at the state level. But the Central Valley is a very important part of the state, and so hopefully you would take our issues and hold them dear as you connect up or make these districts that we can stay as cohesive as possible so our voice will be heard.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Do you mind sharing what your occupation is? Or, I mean, you're very knowledgeable clearly about some aspects of the county. So. Well, I heard some people saying sheriff, and I didn't know if that was...
Thank you. I have 36 years in law enforcement, and I just recently retired as sheriff of Kings County.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have to come to the...
Afterthought. With the information that Mr. Jordan was giving you also, it's really important to keep in mind that in our districts, again, Assembly District and Senate districts, we have Kern County, and Kern County also has, Delano, I believe, has 2 prisons, and Wasco has 1 or 2, 1, and what else is in Kern County? So again, that adds to our population, which makes it, so much larger, but we have, I think people from Northern California call us the Prison Valley now, so we have, within our Senate and Assembly districts, we have quite a few prisons as well, and these are obviously population that the census counts as part of the population for that city. So just kind of keep that in mind. Pardon? What's your number? 27.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. May I say something?
Yes.
My name is Maxine Wade, and I'm also a resident of Kings County, Hanford, and a native, not only of California, but of this county. And I was thrilled to death when the people passed the vote to create this commission. For 10 years, I have been saying we've got to get rid of this gerrymandering. So do a good job. Thank you for coming to see us. We're farm people. We're dairy people. We don't have anything to do a lot with the people on the other side of the mountain, that way, or the other side of the mountain, this way. We're the Great Valley of California. And as the other lady said, we are the breadbasket of the world, and we feed everybody in this room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. We're going to ask commissioners to perhaps give the public a little bit of feedback on this evening. So we'll start with Commissioner Blanc.
Just thank you so much. We were wondering if a lot of people would come. I was so glad to see so many people here, and really, I think it's going to be. We did 4 meetings in the Valley, so we're really trying to understand the needs of the Valley and hear your voices, and I really got a lot of information tonight. Thank you.
I want to also thank you for taking the time to come tonight and tell us about your community here. One of the questions that's asked is, why create a commission full of people? Why not just assign a computer program? We heard some formulas could be used to do this, and one of the things that cannot be programmed into the computer is what defines your community of interest? Where are the boundaries? And as you can hear, there are some differences in where those boundaries might be. And I hope that you reflect on some of the testimony that may or may not be the same as your own, and reflect on some of the numbers that we have to achieve to draw these different districts. And feel free to submit additional comments after you've thought about that, either to us over the internet. You will see in your guide. You can fax information in. You can mail it in. We are going to be at this for a couple more months, so it's not too late to submit comments after tonight. Thank you.
Once again, thank you all for coming. Well, what's interesting as we travel throughout the state is I get a sense of the personality base of the community. And what I sense about this community is that you're all together. There's something about the Valley that creates a personality, and you all seem to be one family. I want to thank you for that.
I also got that impression, and I was very interested in the diversity of your community and how all of you shared in that diversity and said, as you had mentioned earlier, welcoming all of these various ethnicities and groups. And I'm fascinated in seeing that cohesiveness here, and I liked hearing about that. So I certainly also appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us here tonight and to provide your testimony. It was very helpful, very informative for all of us. Thank you.
What we're doing here is building a big jigsaw puzzle. And this meeting, along with the other two we've had so far, have been very helpful as I can sort of begin to put the pieces together and say, this group belongs over there, or this group belongs down here, or how can we make that work? And this has been very helpful for me. And actually, and I'm also very glad to see some farmers here.
I've spent some time in the Valley working on different projects, and I also spent a lot of time looking at the whole country, and this is really a very interesting and a very special place. And when one looks at the history of this state, a lot of the history of this state was written particularly in this county, and it's been an interesting experience. And the thing that hit me as we've been going around the state and listening to the various communities is how far we have come as a state with the variety and the diversity of our populations. And although there's some way to go, I think we've come a long way, and we just got to go a little bit further. Thank you.
I think as we go along with our hearings, really we only kicked off our process. Actually, it's a week ago tomorrow that we had our first input hearing, which was up in Reading. And I think as we've gone along, maybe because the word is spreading and people are becoming more familiar with the process, we're getting more of the type of feedback that we actually need, which are maps, which are the justifications that drive those maps, but really telling us street names, telling us geographic boundaries. That's what's going to help make our job easier. And while at the end of the day, our lines might not line up exactly the same way that yours would, you can expect that same level of deliberation, thoughtful deliberation, and transparency as we go through our process in preparing the maps. And again, after we come with our first set of draft maps, there will be the opportunity, we'll be continuing this roadshow to come back and say, this is how we operationalized what you told us. Does it make sense? Does it not? And so the deal won't be done for quite some time, and we hope that you are able to engage with us at various points of the process. So thank you.
Yeah, that week of being on the road is beginning to seem like a lot longer. You know, you wake up in the morning and you say, what city am I in? Or today we were trying to get to the 4th floor in the hotel, and we realized, no, today we're on the 8th floor. So it's really nice, I have to say, to come to these gatherings and sort of get grounded again in the reality of the areas that we're looking at, and not just feel like we're passing from hotel to hotel and having to eat out all the time. My husband's family lives in Visalia, and we've been married 33 years, so it's been a long period of time that I've gotten to know Visalia. At least I've seen incredible change in those 33 years. But I'm really impressed by all the new information I have about a much broader view of these counties in the area, having listened to your testimony, the growth in the kinds of people that are living here, just the great concern that you all have. We had a number of people here from public officials and organizations. Obviously, a lot of commitment to bettering life for your fellow citizens, and so we're just happy to be able to join in that task. Thank you.
And as was mentioned, is one of the representatives from the Central Valley, the other part of the Central Valley being the north part and being Commissioner Forbes, but being the representative from the San Joaquin Valley. It's been a pleasure for me to make that distinction for my fellow commissioners and for them to really get a picture of the uniqueness of the San Joaquin Valley and the role that it has in the state in a larger sense. So I'd like to say thank you to all of you who came out. I think it's an indication of the 8 counties that make up the San Joaquin Valley. We had representatives from at least 5 that I can count. And I think that's pretty impressive considering the geographic distance of the San Joaquin Valley. So I thank you for that. And on the second note, I just want to say that, kind of building on what Commissioner Galambos-Malloy had mentioned, is we really do encourage the continuation of your participation in this process. I think by being here, you showed a commitment to this process, but we'd like to see you carry that on and carry that word to your friends. We are providing transparency in this process, and we'd like you to provide the accountability to us by continuing to be involved. All of our events will be live streamed. They will be archived. You can go back and review the other community meetings in regions near you so you can hear what someone else is saying. The counties that are north of you, south of you, east and west may have another perspective on how they draw the lines that would impact you, so we encourage you to watch those. But again, we provide the transparency and we ask you to help us with the accountability. Thank you.
Being on this end of the aisle, everything that we want to say has been said, and I just want to say that ditto to everything that was commented. But two things I want to again reiterate is the fact that by you presenting maps to us directly, and you have presented a lot of maps to us, the process has gone very, very efficiently. As we can tell, we may be, for the first time ever, ahead of schedule. And the second thing that I want to comment is that besides spending 30-some scheduled meetings like this throughout the state of California, we would also be spending 20-plus meetings working with our map drawers. And in that process, we're going to go through every piece of email, every piece of map, every comment that's been made about a certain region, and in order for us to give precise direction to the map drawers. So don't interpret this as being the only opportunity that you can give us data. As you see, or keep an eye on our other meetings throughout the state, and if you come across something that's important, by all means, continue to provide feedback to us, because it is this process that would allow us to draw good maps. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
And what a wonderful evening it has been. As the final commissioner to provide comment, I'll promise to be brief so we can get home. I'll go out and celebrate on Friday night here in Hanford. I'll be brief. I just want to say that I'm so fortunate that the commission has provided me an opportunity to exit off of the 5 freeway or Highway 99 as I passed through this county before. This is my first time to actually visit Hanford and to experience Hanford and to listen to your issues, your concerns, what makes this county really be what it is today, the water concerns, the different subjects that you brought up tonight that we're recording and capturing, that's going to make this process of redistricting a very good one for us when it relates to all these counties that we visited, and your comments are definitely taken seriously. So thank you for being out here on Friday night, providing us with this information. I'm sure there are other places you could be, but I'm glad you were here tonight. Thank you again.
We're going to catch you in the hallway, and you're going to give us directions.
Yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you for your thoughtful testimony. Good night.
Okay, so the important question is, where do you find Superior Dairy?